What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I am honored to have back on the show for part 2 of his audience Q&A, operational CIA, monarch mindslave, survivor, thriver, and whistleblower, devoted husband and loving father, blogger and content creator, published book, writer and author, beloved podcast regular, and absolute warrior, J.R. Sweet. A little bit about JR. If you guys missed his other episodes, need a refresher on our part 1 Q&A, or if you're new here. For most of his life, JR believed he had grown up in a relatively normal family. That illusion shattered in 2017 at age 38 when long suppressed memories began to surface with devastating clarity. What emerged was the truth of systematic ritualistic abuse beginning in infancy. He was tested at 5 years old for his capacity to dissociate, and from that moment forward was forced to become a CIA-sponsored mind slave. As a teenager, JR was sold to Senator Robert Byrd, who used him in blackmail operations, pornography production, and eventually cleared him for Pentagon-level black operations after a sadistic test of obedience involving the murder of someone JR cared deeply about. He carried out assassinations, guarded satanic rituals in underground complexes, and was positioned in proximity to figures in politics, Hollywood, and the music industry. He personally encountered people whose public personas had lives of control and compromise. Yet the most extraordinary chapter of JR's life is not what was done to him, but what he has done with the pain and devastation. In 2017, when the walls of amnesia began to crack, JR chose the path of exposure rather than silence. He began journaling every memory that returned, no matter how painful, how horrifying, or how professionally risky. Those raw, meticulously processed accounts now live on his website, www.mormonmonarch.com, a digital lighthouse for other survivors and a public record that refuses to be erased. The writings are not sensationalized. They are sober, detailed, and relentlessly honest. They name locations, methods, abusers, and institutions, including the hidden intersection of certain religious hierarchies, government agencies, and elite bloodlines. Today, JR is a husband and father who protects his own children from the systems that once enslaved him. He's a writer whose incredible self-published memoir, Mormon Monarch, will preserve his testimony for all of time. And above all, he is proof that no matter the amount of programming, no depth of betrayal and no layer of dissociation can extinguish the divine spark that refuses to be enslaved. Our last episode was the first part of an audience question and answer session. And on today's episode, JR will be doing part 2 of answering all of your questions. In the powerful first half, JR opened his heart with raw honesty, sharing how his wife, Kate, has been his God-given anchor, a steady listener and emotional, spiritual, and mental support who helped pull him from abuse cycles and stood beside him through harassment and awakening after nearly 2 decades together. He spoke movingly of his evolving relationship with Jesus Christ, despite a satanic upbringing that twisted sacred truths, calling God his rock and leaning on faith and amid suicide programming and triggers. He detailed the weaponization of Disney movies and characters for trauma-based mind control, pornography, obedience tests, and subconscious updates that follow survivors into everyday life. He addressed voice-to-skull technology, ear-ringing triggers, chipped implants from his time with Senator Byrd, daily safety routines as an armed protector of his family, his grandfather, Jim Reeves' double life and paranoia, the healing power of journaling, rest, nutrition, art, animal companions, and planning one's own future after decades of control. He reminded us all that supporters are vital ripple makers, that truth must be spoken without embellishment, and that now, today, in 2026, is the time to champion this movement because the world is finally listening. I will have the link for that powerful part 1 in the show notes below if you missed it, and I highly encourage you to hear the valuable information JR offered. In every word, every memory shared, every question answered, J.R. proves that no programming is permanent, no cage is unbreakable, and no darkness can withstand a soul that chooses light. J.R. didn't just survive. He reclaimed, redeemed, and now leads. He is living proof that the human spirit, once awakened, is unstoppable. And today, as he continues part 2 of this audience Q&A, he invites every listener to rise with him, to speak truth, to protect the innocent, and to become the ripple that ends the silence forever. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming back today's guest of honor, survivor and overcomer, walking miracle, educator and content creator, voice for the voiceless, anti-child abuse and survivor advocate, passionate purveyor of truth, someone I'm beyond honored to call a friend, and a man on a mission to expose crimes against humanity being committed on innocent children and humans by our governments, corporations, and religious institutions. The one, the only, J.R. Sweet. J.R., it is so great to have you back. Thank you for coming back on for this powerful Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Yeah, that was a wonderful introduction. You're really good at that.
You deserve every word. And, your work is it's so important what you've done. And it's really amazing to see the ripples you have made and how your testimony is being shared, not just on social media, but people are recommending it on big podcasts, and there's just so much value and information that you've brought to the surface that has really helped inspire change and hope in survivors, and then also awareness in the general public. And it's great to have you on to get to learn more about you, especially the things that might not be covered in your book or on your website, some of the more nuanced questions that survivors have and the audience. And last time we answered a lot of questions. It was really awesome getting to hear the advice that you had, the experiences that matched some of the answers that you shared, and, just having sort of these deeper insights on some of these more intricate and specialized issues and questions that people have that maybe they don't feel get a voice all the time. So I'm really excited to dive into part 2 today. And thank you everybody listening for submitting your questions. We thought we could do it all in one episode, but we couldn't. There was just a lot of them, and some of them take, a little bit of time to cover, but I'm really excited to answer the rest of your questions. If we didn't answer them last time, we're going to answer them today. So I'm going to hand it over to you, JR, and you can start wherever you want.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Thank you for everything you do. It's important to speak out for me, but I wouldn't be able to speak out nearly as loudly without help from people like you. And so thank you, Emma. Thank you for everything that you do. I really appreciate that. I do want to give people a warning, because these things can be very triggering for folks. And so this interview is intended for people that are 18 or older. I want that to be well understood for folks. And then there will be triggers in this conversation. And so if you are a survivor of the CIA's trauma-based mind control program or satanic ritual abuse, you might want to have someone else screen this before you watch it. But this is Q&A, and I'm excited about it. I really like to hear from people, to hear their questions. I have a really hard time answering them all the time on X because I'm just so busy, but I do read a lot of them and try to respond. So this is a good way for me to answer some of these important questions, because people do have a lot of questions. And so I appreciate that. I also appreciate everyone's involvement in spreading this information. I don't know that can be overstressed, how important it is that people help to share this information and spread it throughout the world, because this is affecting a lot of people across the world. Trauma-based mind control is an international issue that needs to be addressed. And particularly in the United States, for me, that's where my experience is. But there's people from all over the world. You have Fiona Barnett. She's over in Australia, I believe. And then people all around. I hear from people all over. And so it's an important topic that needs to be discussed. I wanted to start off, so we were able to cover a lot of information, Emma, in our last discussion. And I marked it on my notes here where I left off because I would have lost my place. But yeah, I would have. Yeah. But here, where I left off, I want to start back at the beginning just for a second, because one of the first people to respond on X with a question or a comment was Love Being. And I didn't get to address him in my last discussion. And Love Being, I couldn't understand what he put up as a map. He put up a map of some kind with some kind of a link, and I had trouble with that. And so I apologize. But this individual seems like a good individual who's working through some things. And so I wanted to recognize that. And I hope that you are well and that everything's going okay for you. But I was unable to understand the question or comment that you put up. I just wanted you to be aware of that. And I didn't want you to feel like you were being left out, because we all care about you. And I hope you're doing okay. The next thing I wanted to cover, this is a question that I want to address by Ein Frog Newer. And so for me, this is kind of fun to address these questions. In a way, I guess it's fun. It's nice to interact with folks. But Ein Frog Newer asked, is the occult elite primarily concerned with power over the physical world? If so, are they afraid of what might happen after death? That's a really good question, Ein Frog Newer. From my experience, I would say yes. The occult elite are very concerned about power in this physical world. That's what mind control is about, having power over people's minds in this world, because when we pass away, that control will be lost. Are they afraid of what might happen after death? I can't answer that for all of them. I do know that blood, fresh blood drawn through trauma, is considered by the satanic elite and satanic circles to be the fountain of youth. It gives you longevity in life. And so they are afraid of death because the deals they've made in this life, I wouldn't want to be them. I don't know that they took a whole lot into consideration about their soul after death. But I do know that they consume human blood drawn through trauma in order to lengthen their lifespan. And my own grandmother, she was terrified of death. And she's someone who had experience with that. And she was still terrified of it. And she had good reason to be, because the world where she was going, they weren't going to be accepting of what she had spent her time here on this earth doing. And so I hope that that has answered that question. I can't tell you what a lot of folks think, because I didn't sit down and talk to the Fords, for example, when I was made to play the most dangerous game with them. But in my mind, they are afraid of passing away because the next life isn't going to be good for them. So I hope I've answered that for you.
It seems like, too, I just want to add, from hearing so many testimonies, there also seems to be sort of, even if it's not death necessarily that we could call this, it seems like there's an obsession with consciousness, like preserving that. Like they want to extract that from a person and have that live on eternally, whether they can transfer it or however their means are of doing that. It seems like that comes up a lot, where they're trying to play around with how to keep the soul eternal here somehow, or how to eternalize a person, even from hearing, billionaires freezing themselves in freezers to one day be resurrected again, so I don't know if that's consistent across all these different cults, if there's, just certain projects or, kind of what they're doing. But I've noticed like something with that. I can't pinpoint it exactly, but there seems to be something where even if they're not afraid of death, they want to like elongate life somehow.
Play God.
Yeah, that's a good way to put that. Yeah.
In essence, yeah, play God. Yeah. It does seem to be a trend. Yeah. That's a good point, Emma. Thank you. The next question was by Some Days. And this individual says, has he had any encounters with spiritual or extra dimensional entities? How does he understand the afterlife? And so that plays right into what you just said, Emma. And I'm glad that that question was located there, because you raise a good point. Things I don't understand, because I have seen people talk about aliens, all this talk of aliens, and Trump is going to release all this information supposedly on extraterrestrials. In my knowledge, in my memory, I have never seen an alien. I've seen people dressed up as aliens and acting as aliens and being filmed as aliens, but I've never seen an alien. Now, with that said, I have seen strange aircraft. I once witnessed an aircraft that came out of the sky and went into a cloud bank. It was really interesting. It had this huge trail behind it. It almost looked like a comet or something, or asteroid, and it went into a cloud with this huge trail behind it. And then it came out of the cloud and it actually flew right past me on this little mountain road coming off of Moscow Mountain outside Moscow, Idaho. And I could clearly see this aircraft, and it looked like, it's weird, it looked like a pyramid just spinning around and around, and it had a light on each corner, and it just spun and it flew past. And I don't know what that would have been, if that would have been alien, interdimensional, or our own government. I don't know the answer to that. But I have seen entities. There was an entity at my parents' home, and I would just call it an entity because my children had seen it. My daughter had seen it, and she saw it climbing up the wall and up the ceiling. It had a face, and it did something at her. And then my son saw an individual, an entity at the door to their home. And I can remember this encounter myself. And it was an entity that fed off of blood. I don't understand all these things. I'm just telling you what I witnessed. This entity was able to stop time. It just stopped everything. Everyone just stopped. And for me, it was surprising. I was familiar with it when this occurred. But my wife was there, and I don't know that I'd ever seen her around this entity, and she just stopped. And my son, he looked like he was comprehending what was happening. And at that time, I worried about him a little bit in my mind, because I was used to seeing this thing, this entity. It was some kind of demonic entity. And so I don't know if that entity was something like you described, Emma, where it was an individual whose soul was being carried on and it had to feed off of blood, or if it was an interdimensional entity. I don't understand it. I really don't. But I know that it fed off of blood. It was able to essentially stop time. And then it drank from my mother. It pierced my mother and drank some of her blood. And it was angry that when we showed up to the house that it had that we were late. We were late on its feeding. And so there are strange things like that, demonic things that exist in our world that we don't get to see on a regular basis, but it exists. And people have witnessed these things. I've witnessed these things. And so I have encountered spiritual or extra dimensional entities, but I don't consider them to be aliens. A lot of folks, like I was saying, consider alien life. I wonder what all this alien stuff is really about because of what I've seen. And so, and the afterlife, how do I understand the afterlife? I've talked about that before. People can see that in interviews I've done for you, Emma, because the CIA did stop my heart in suicide programming in some deprivation tanks at Idaho National Engineering Laboratories. That place changes its name so often. But there were dep tanks there, and I was put through what's called suicide programming, and the CIA stopped my heart, and I was dead for a short period of time. And I did go to what I call the other side, which I refer to as home. I was taken back home. And so when I was there, I saw a lot of things. I can't just say that. You can find that interview through Emma's website. I would recommend you do that. That'd be a very long story here. It was a beautiful place, a beautiful world, built of energy, love. And the most important thing that I experienced there, people should know, was just pure truth. The truth that existed in that world. No deception, none. None of this deception that's been going on for so long with the people and our governments and our religions. No deception, just pure truth and love. And it's a wonderful place. And so I believe when we die, we go back home. And you can find those a lot better description in some of Emma's previous podcasts or on my website. It's under The Other Side, or you can read it in my book in the chapter The Other Side. So
it's a very, very touching memory. I remember being brought to tears hearing that one, and it was a longer memory, but worth every single second to listen to. It was just a really incredible moment that you had in such a time of despair.
Yeah, I'm trying not to start weeping this time. And that would probably bring me to tears talking about that. So, but I did also experience extra dimensional or spiritual entities. I don't know how to describe them. So it's a very strange phenomenon. And other survivors will talk about that. Paul Bonacci talks about that a lot more than I do, I believe. And so you can look up Paul and he'll talk about that.
And at these, the rituals and stuff that a lot of these cults partake in, that seems to be an element of that, aside from trying to dissociate the child and create trauma. They also seem, a lot of these groups, obsessed with trying to summon spirits themselves or energies and entities from the ritualized abuse of children, and then these, rituals that they do.
Yeah, I cannot disagree with any of that. It's something that I need to address more in my own past, Emma, but I haven't delved that deep into that. I understand all that, and I need to delve deeper into it myself, but I haven't done that yet. It's such a hard thing. It's such a hard line of a bending of reality, because the Bible talks about it a lot. These things, these demonic things, possession, things of that nature. It's just such a hard thing to delve into. But yeah, I need to work on that more. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it's very interesting. You have to wonder how much of that has been hidden from the people. Yes. There's a lot that you would want to believe, or that you would have been taught to believe was fantasy, was not possible, was just part of some storyline from the Bible or whatever. But there's a lot of truth in that. And so, yeah, I will have to work on that more myself. Yeah, that's something I need to delve into more. And I will do that at some point soon. Yeah, it's so hard to find time. I'm trying to make time. So I'm going to change my priorities here.
There's so many layers to all of this. It has to be really difficult to confront even one layer, much less diving so deep into all of them. It really is hard. And, even not going through it, thinking about time and space being different than what I was taught, and, reality bending, like you said, or time stopping. And in these instances, it throws you into this loop, and it's sort of a never ending hole that you can accidentally go down to, that can spiral and be very debilitating, to reckon with some of this. So you need like the right time to do it. And I think you're doing everything exactly how you should be. You have a family, you have a job. It's hard to just dive into all of this stuff at once. And, you've been working through some really, really difficult memories, like you said, that are journaled, and people can learn about a lot of this stuff through your memories that you've already recovered.
Yeah. And then I'll work through those things when I can. Yeah. Yeah. One individual, they call themselves Emma on X. They asked the question, how do we help survivors without triggering them? That is a really good question. And I struggle with that one myself because, my family, first of all, but also people in my own environment, because a lot of my life growing up as a young person, as a child, there were people that would be placed in my life in order to help control my situation, other programmed individuals. And so that's a tough question, because there's people I want to wake up, but I know that would not be a good decision. I have to leave that between them and God, and them, and when they're ready to do that. And so what I've learned is I've learned to listen. I've learned to listen to people, and people will share a lot of information with you if you are able to just listen to them. And when they share that information, it is helping to break it down in their own conscious mind and allow them to process it. And so I will do a lot of listening for people, because that is what I feel is really important. I don't try to wake people up. I don't try to shock them. Well, some people I do try to shock once in a while, the general population. But I mean an individual specifically that I know is a survivor of the project. I don't want to just wake them up because they might have an issue. And so learn to listen. If you can listen, then they can start to process it and work through it. So that is what I would say there on that question, Em, is learn just to listen. That way you don't trigger someone. And so it is a difficult path. I agree with you, Em. I agree. It is hard. Another question. This is by Morgan Collins. And Morgan says, I usually have a ton of questions. I go through this too sometimes, where I'll be thinking of things and then it's gone. And it's good to write stuff down. I usually have a ton of questions until I'm asked, what do you want to know? I need to start writing down my random thoughts. And so I agree with you. And that's why journaling is so important. Kathy O'Brien, in her work, PTSD, Time to Heal, talks about journaling a lot. And so that journaling, we were talking a minute ago about how I have things I need to work out. still. Well, I take those things that I know I need to work out and I write them in my journal at the very front. And so I have lots of different binders full of journaling, but you'll find in the front of some of those that I've been working the most out of, not as of late. I need to work on it more. I confess my sins in that area, but I have a list in the front of my book, and I'm able to start writing those things down. And so I will write down, you need to work on this memory flash. You need to work on this one. You need to work on this one. And there's pages of it in my books of things I need to work through. And so writing it down is really important. Just so that Kathy O'Brien, she talks about how you should carry a little book with you. And I do that as well. I carry a small book, and I have it here because it's with me all the time. It's just a little book, see? And then you can write stuff down in it. It can come to you and you can say, okay, I need to remember this. And so like here, it says, Grandma and passing test. Now I can be more involved, help more. And then I ended that little note with, fuck you, Grandma. Yeah, like, and so that's great. And that records that memory. And then you can come back to it later. And so in that little note, I was able to also let go of some of my anger at my grandmother because, yeah, that is how I felt about her at that time. But I do feel like it's really important to write stuff down and make lists, and then you can come back to it when you're ready to start working through that. So
I like this feisty JR. See it come out once in a while. I like it.
Yeah, I can be feisty from time to time. I try not to be feisty at work, but yeah. Okay, and then Jeff Lee Staniels. This is a question by Jeff Lee Staniels. Any knowledge or training for potential upcoming Black Awakening New World Order? I can't say much about that. That's not where my memories were. I was used for a lot of different things. I wasn't usually told a whole lot. Byrd talked to me some. He was a talker, and he talked to me some. And my grandparents, I can remember my grandpa and Byrd talking. But Byrd, if people want to read about my thoughts on what they're doing in America, and it's not my thoughts, it's what I remember Byrd talking about, they can read through my journaled memory meeting with a bird in the garden, because that's where Byrd, that was when I had been sold to Byrd in 1993 for his use as a trauma-based mind slave. And he talked to me about a lot of things, and they want to destroy this democratic republic, which is America. They want to destroy it. They don't want people to have as much freedom as the people in this nation have. And you can read about that there. I didn't have as much experience, like, for example, in the White House or stuff like that. I was held off and then brought in for specific operations more. So I can't answer too much on that, but you can find some of my journaling about that in a meeting with the bird in the garden, Jeff Lee Staniels. So thank you for your question. That was a good question. Ronnie asked, Ronnie has been following me for a while, and she has lots of good questions and lots of good points. And she, in my mind, has been somewhat shocked by the way that the government has responded to this. A lot of people have a lot of faith in the government, and there's parts of me that I wish that it was true, that I could rely on my government. I wish that. There's parts of me that wish that that was true and that I could, but I understand that our government is directly involved with these things. This practice called trauma-based mind control, it has become institutionalized within our government, and it reaches from the top and it goes to the bottom. It is throughout, even in the school system, it resides. And so it's a terrible conundrum. I can understand what Ronnie has been going through. And so Ronnie said, I would like to know why our government isn't doing anything about SRA and exposing the pedo politicians, even though JR has contacted them many times. Nothing is more important than this. And I agree with her. This is one of the most important subjects in our world, in our nation, because it affects our world and our nation. If you have a trauma-based mind slave who is the president, who has access to nuclear weapons, to controlling your military, that's a problem. This is a huge national security concern. You also have people that have been that are trauma-based mind slaves doing things like running corporations. Corporations have a lot of power, huge amount of power, because of the wealth that they hold. You have religious institutions being controlled by these people. And so Ronnie asked a really good question. Our government is corrupted, and it is complicit in these things. This thing that I'm talking about, trauma-based mind control, it has become institutionalized. It has. We have different worlds that we're looking at. We have the world of the people. I've tried to explain this to folks. We have the world of the people, which is us. You, Emma, me, the people, Ronnie, these other individuals that live in this world that aren't a part of the satanic elite. You have this other group of people who are elevated, and they even consider themselves to be elevated above the people. It's no different than the minds of people from 1,000 years ago of this is our king and our ruler. And this ruler is so much greater than the people. It's the same concept. It has not died. And these people view themselves as greater than, and they are using trauma-based mind control to control many facets of our existence. They are using it to control our government, to control our media, to control our religious institutions. God knows what else. I'm just trying to stick by my experience, but there's all kinds of other things you could look at as well. So our government is compromised, and it is complicit in these things, and it's funding it even. It is funding it. The Central Intelligence Agency is funding it. The Energy Department is funding it. The Education Department is funding it. And then you have all kinds of black funds from human trafficking and from drug smuggling. And who knows what they're doing with all that money? My God, it's a terrible thing to consider. And so the government itself, people imagine that this government serves the people, that it serves us, the people. I've got a wake-up call. Some people are already awake to this, but some of us aren't. The government does not serve the people. The government serves the satanic elite. It serves those people that they're the satanic elite. They follow the teachings of Lucifer. They follow Satanism, and they have gained huge amounts of money and wealth and power through that money. And those are the people that the government serves. In the end, it's not serving the people. It's two different worlds. I don't know why it's so difficult for people to get their heads around that. Yeah. But it's how it is. It's how it is. I had an old boss once in Ketchum, Idaho. See, when I worked in Ketchum, I was around those people, those satanic elite. And I can remember my boss, Todd, he was he was in the know, but he was not in the know. A lot of things are compartmentalized, but he understood that those people that we were working for lived different than everybody else. These people that I'm talking about, the satanic elite, they are involved with generational pedophilia. They are pedophiles. They are involved with kiddie porn. I'm just going to say it. They're involved with child pornography. They are knee deep in it. The Hiltons are a great example of that. Those girls were brought up being filmed doing awful things. And that's how those people are. They see the world differently, and they're able to elevate themselves in that network and in that society and get themselves up to the top. And so coming back to the question earlier of, are they concerned about power in this physical world? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They are concerned about it. And it's also difficult and convoluted because some of them might even be programmed with specific programs that have been being carried on for generations through these elite satanic family bloodlines. I don't know the answer to all that, but that is a dialogue that people should be having, because these satanic elite have been carrying on an agenda for a very long time. And so it's been going on for a long time. The CIA didn't invent trauma-based mind control. They didn't invent it. They are just working with it. They've been studying it. They have a scientific formula that they've developed that they think works. Well, it works, but not in the end. We're not going to put up with that. So our government is corrupt, Rodney. It is corrupt. And the satanic elite are in control of our government. They are the ones that are in control of it. They are in control of the Justice Department. They are in control of the media. The whole world is just such a lie. Everything that we're being told and that's being spun at us. I don't want to go off on that too much. That's not, but it's all corrupted. It's terrible, Emma. It's a horrible thing. And so it's a sad thing, because it's so difficult to understand what the truth really is. And so I get that. People have a really hard time understanding what the truth is. And it's usually an inversion. The satanic elite are really into opposites. And so when I hear the news, I always think around in opposites. Okay, so what's really going on then? It's most likely the opposite of whatever it is that I just heard, because they work in opposites. And so it's a terrible thing. Yeah, our government is controlled by these people. It's like a restaurant. If you owned a restaurant, Emma, okay, and you sold food, right? And your restaurant was close to a university, okay? And that university was always buying your food because they loved your food and everyone at the university loved it. They're your biggest customer. Let's say they're buying 90% of your burgers. And then the other 10% of your burgers are being sold to the general population. Who's your biggest customer? Who's your biggest concern? Who are you most worried about? It's that university. It's that university. And so the concept is the same. The satanic elite have a lot of money, a lot of power, and they have the ability to get people elected and get them in control and get them power. And so, yeah.
And they're psychopaths, that can be a hard thing too for a regular civilian to understand, is not having empathy, not wanting to care about the people that you're supposed to have authority over, not wanting to serve a community, but only serve yourself. Like, that mentality is very foreign to people. So I think also the lack of education on psychopathy, on narcissism, on, an abusive personality type, we're not really taught that. And so I think too, it's hard for people to imagine that, and it's very difficult to contend with, that that's the type of person that's ruling over us and who has authority over us, is somebody who literally doesn't have empathy for anybody. They could and do murder, at their own expense and at the expense of others, and don't care. They sleep perfectly at night after doing that. And they don't care. They'll go have dinner after, murdering somebody and not even think about it. And so that can be really hard too, I think, for people to just contend with, that level of evil is who we are being ruled by, and that, it's just out of the realm of consciousness of like a normal caring person who, if they were in that position, would serve with integrity and care and compassion for people under them, and would serve their community instead of themselves.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, they are psychopaths.
Yes.
Yeah, and in their mind, they're doing what they are supposed to be doing.
Exactly, yes.
They are doing what should be done no matter what the cost is.
Especially if they're programmed too, on top of that.
Yeah, especially if they're programmed. That's a very bad deal. Yeah, agreed.
Great question.
Yeah, great question. And then we have Tim. Let's keep rolling. So we got Tim. He had a question. I'm a victim of this, just like Epstein files. And so I tried not to adjust people's messages. I tried to just copy them and read them just like they were written. And so I know who traffickers are, who's using the microwave fray effect hearing dues, who can help me. No one gets back to me. I understand this individual's message here, and it's painful. No one gets back to me. Yeah. For years, you just wish someone would get back to you, but it's a lonely journey. It is such a lonely journey waking up into this stuff. And so I feel for this individual. It's a terrible thing to wake up into. I still ask myself, who can help me? And there are therapists that I have in mind and different individuals that I would like to talk to. And it's still hard to know who you can even trust. And so as a survivor of these things, you have to be not just careful, you have to be extremely vigilantly diligent in your working on not just exposing these things or things like that, but just your own health, your own mental health, your own physical safety, the safety of your family. Those things are all so important, and understanding who to trust. I am grateful for people like you, Emma, individuals who can listen and who I can trust. I know there's a lot of distrust in the online world, in our world, but Emma's someone I can trust. And I appreciate that. And that is golden. And there are other people I've learned to trust. And that has come very slow, and it is still in process, because I was raised in a world where you can't trust anyone. And so be careful, Tim, in your awakening, and have patience. Who can help me? I would say I don't want to answer that. I don't want to, because I don't know the answer of who can help you in particular. I would say pray. I spend a lot of time in prayer. And when I first started to remember these things, I spent a lot more time in prayer. And when I prayed, I didn't pray for things I wanted. I didn't pray I prayed for truth is what I prayed for. And I prayed for God to lead me where I needed to be and to understand the truth as it is. And so I would recommend prayer, and God will answer your prayer, but be patient and diligent and vigilant in taking care of yourself and your family, and in healing. Healing is so important. You know, Emma, Kathy O'Brien, she really drives home the fact that just healing And breaking free from trauma-based mind control is the greatest thing you can do in your lifetime. If you are a survivor, the greatest thing you can do is just to break the chains, to break free from that. And so if you can become consciously aware and you can break free, you have already done a huge thing. And for me, when that occurred, I understood that I had to get away from my family. I had to get away from Idaho. They were trying to kill me there, for one thing, and I was harassed there all the time. But I also understood I need to get my children away from these people, away from this abuse base, so that I can break that chain and it will not carry on. Now, I still worry about my children. My God, do I worry, because this is a generational thing. They're after the blood, they're after the bloodline. These people are sick and they're after the bloodline. And so I still worry, but it is such a huge thing to break the chain, break the cycle. And so, with all that said, I would recommend Tim get PTSD Time to Heal by Kathy O'Brien, and you can find it at her website, and you should read it because the healing comes from here. It comes from here. It's divine. It's already given to you by God. You can heal. You just have to learn the process. And so I would recommend that Tim get that work and that he read it, because I believe that could really help him. And stay safe, Tim. Stay safe. Stay conscious. Stay diligent. Stay patient.
And we're praying for him. We're sending you prayers to you.
Yeah. Prayers are a big deal. Prayers work. They help. I was triggered here about a week and a half ago by it was a phone call, and I have a work phone, and I made the mistake of going through the process calling this number back, and I got triggered. And I was wondering what was wrong with me all that day. And I got home, Emma, and I was like, what's wrong with me? I still don't feel right. What's wrong? And finally I understood I've been triggered, and it occurred. And it was incredible to me because someone had messaged me and said, I've been praying for you. I've been praying for you tonight. And about the time that I realized they'd been praying was the time that I had become consciously aware that I'd been triggered. And so prayer is important. There are people on the other side who care about us. We're not alone in this world. There are folks on the other side who do care about us. When I say the other side, I mean the other side. I mean, after we pass away and we go back home and we see everyone that's been here before, they do care. And so you're not alone. So prayer is important. I believe that very strongly. But I don't want to get too teary-eyed. I have to work through all these things. So that's what I would recommend for Tim. Read PTSD Time to Heal and spend some time in prayer and meditation. So this one is from Veronica Christina. And Veronica asks, could you ask if it's possible to be a state asset and go through your life without even knowing it? Yes. Yes. You know the answer to this as well, Emma. The answer is yes. You can go through your whole life and not realize you are a state asset, or a federal asset, or a CIA asset, or you could be a church asset from the past that I grew up in, being raised in satanic ritual abuse. The human trafficking and mind slavery it's a horrible thing, and there's more than just CIA doing it. But you could go through your whole life, and they might come out in little ways in your life, and your subconscious might nag at you. But yes, you could be. And so I didn't wake up till I was about 37, 38 years old before I realized that I was a state asset. And that was a horrible awakening, absolutely horrible. And so, but it's worth it. If you were put through trauma-based mind control or satanic ritual abuse, it's worth it to remember. You start to understand yourself better. You start to work through things. We'll talk about that more. I want to keep going because the other questions answer more things. This is from Linda Dorner. She says, if he knows what Nazi programming would entail, what they did to babies in hospitals to program them. And then she says, thank you. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for your question. I can't answer a whole lot on that. I just can't. I remember an individual who was a neo-Nazi that I worked with in Ketchum and Haley, Idaho, in Sun Valley, Ketchum and Haley, and he was a neo-Nazi, and people can read about that in my journaled memory, Redemption. And as far as hospitals, I have been able to remember some of being a child, a small child, but not much about hospitals, so I can't answer that really. I did have a doctor. My parents growing up had a really hard time finding a doctor for me because I was always sick. I was always being hit with a stun gun, and so I was always sick, ill. It always seemed like I had the flu. And sometimes I would just fake being sick because I didn't want to go to school, for example. And so I would fake that I was sick. I had a lot of shame that I lived with as a child, being raised in the project, being molested by my father and my grandfather and my uncle, Gail Pooley, and those people. And so I had a lot of shame. But they had a hard time finding a doctor because I was always sick. And they finally found this doctor I can remember. They wanted to have my tonsils removed. And my tonsils, I believe I had trouble with my tonsils because my father and grandfather were always making me perform oral sex on them. And they were always shoving their dick in my mouth. And so I started to really develop trouble with my tonsils. And then I had my tonsils finally removed. They were able to find a doctor they could work with that would remove my tonsils. And it seemed like he wouldn't talk too much. His name was Dr. Worth. And I've looked into this Dr. Worth a little bit. I have to look into it more. I haven't looked into it for probably, 8 or 9 years now. When I first started to remember, I looked into Dr. Worth, and there were some interesting things. I won't talk about that much right now, but I'll research that so that I know exactly what I'm talking about the next time we chat about that, Emma. So, but they'd have a hard time finding doctors for me is the point of it. So, but I can't answer much on that question. I apologize, Linda. So. And then the next individual, the next question, Neelu M. Patel is the name. And Neelu asked, is he aware of Tim Ballard being a Freemason? No, I'm not. I'm not aware of that. I don't know much about Tim Ballard. Is he the one that did that film, Emma, conspiracy?
Yeah.
What was it called?
It was called The Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, The Sound of Freedom. Yeah, Tim Ballard. Yeah. I don't have any personal experience with Tim Ballard. And so I'll just leave it at that.
You guys can find a lot. Just Google him, or if you guys follow the account on Twitter, LDS Abuse, he's exposed Tim Ballard a little bit with things he's researched that are pretty thorough and based in fact. So you guys can go follow him and I would say go research it.
Yeah, that's Justin, isn't it? Justin Riggs.
Yeah, Justin Riggs. Yeah.
Yeah. They can find all the information that is available through Justin. He's really good at that.
He's dug up some pretty good stuff about Tim. That's pretty damning. So he's a good resource for really factual based stuff with evidence. So go follow him and
Yeah.
look on his page for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow Justin. LDS abuse, correct?
Yep.
Yep. So go look into Justin Riggs. He'll steer you in that direction. And then Bill Murphy had a question. Bill, I see Bill a lot on there. He seems like a pretty cool guy. But Bill, he says, how high up in our government do the satanic elite go? Our president, Congress people, and senators, corporate CEOs. Yes, Bill. When I had passed my Pentagon level black operations testing with Dick Cheney, that night after the testing, my grandfather had told me to come over to his house and watch a movie with him. And so I went over to Grandpa's house after on that night, after I'd been tested and I'd met Dick Cheney. And I went over to Grandpa's and Grandma's, and we watched a movie together, Unforgiven, horrible movie by Clint Eastwood. Clint, he had a house there in Sun Valley. I can remember his house there in Sun Valley. But we watched Unforgiven, and my grandfather and I talked that night when we were watching that movie, because my grandpa wanted to talk to me after I'd passed my Pentagon level Black Ops testing with Mr. Cheney. And my grandpa told me that I had met the man who had become the vice president of the United States. And he explained to me how big of a deal that was. And he told me at that time how our elected officials, our presidents, people of that nature they're not elected by the people. This is a mockery of our intelligence. I'm sorry, folks. I don't want to be the one to break that to you, but these voting in these national elections is a joke, because the satanic elite and the deep state know exactly who they're going to put into power long before all this stuff of elections and campaigns and elect me, all that bullshit begins. They already know who's going to be there. And so my grandfather told me that Dick Cheney is going to be the vice president of the United States and George Bush would be the president. And he told me these things before they were elected. And he said that they don't leave this to the people. They don't leave it to them. They don't leave that decision to you, Emma, or to me, or to my ballot, or to anyone else's ballot. They don't leave it to that. No, they already have made that decision. And so all these people that are elected, and he told me in that conversation as well, that now that I was a monarch programmed individual, and that I had reached the elevation that I had within the agency, that I would even be, what is the word? It would be possible for me to also be elected into that position, such as the president of the United States, because I was a programmed individual. So the elections are a joke. They are a joke. And these people put in power are put in power. It's not elected by the people. And so Kathy O'Brien, she talks about Bill Clinton. She talks about George Bush. I have talked about Senator Robert Byrd. Kathy also talked about that individual. Dick Cheney, Leahy, Senator Leahy. A lot of people don't know about Leahy, but they can find him in Kathy's work. He was a senator from Vermont. And from what I've read of him, he sounds like a real scumbag. Or they can read about Romney. And so so our politics are flooded with these people that are in the know of what's going on and are actively involved with trauma-based mind control programming. They are either being programmed, or or involved with programming others. And so it goes clear to the top, and then it comes down, and it goes down all the way down to the bottom, to the family living in the neighborhood. They might be poor, but they're raising their child so that someday they can sell that child to the agency. They might be raising them in a specific church that helps to hide them, such as I was, the Mormon church. And then they get involved with politics. They get involved with whatever. Or child porn. That's another avenue that they can take. And so it reaches from the top clear down to the bottom in our politics. It's a terrible thing. It's awful. And corporate CEOs, when I was working in Ketchum, I was able to see the environment that these elite individuals carry themselves in. And it's a mixed up world, Emma. It's really mixed up. We would use people's assets, their homes, these super rich people. We would use their home as a place to meet, and then from that place travel to a hit site or something like that. And the CIA is able to use these satanic families in that way because these satanic families are compromised by the CIA. And so it's a really convoluted world on who's controlling who in all of this. It gets really mixed up. It's difficult to understand. And so these CEOs, they might be just Satanists. They might be programmed. A lot of them, I believe. Now, I don't like to talk too much about my beliefs because I like to just stick to the facts. What I witnessed was the homes I was working in Ketchum, Idaho, and the people that I was around that we would consider to be from the elite community. I know we all want to throw up when that word comes out, but they are the satanic elite in this world. And from what I saw and what I experienced, they are very evil people that are involved in trauma-based mind control. They're involved in Satanism. They're involved in kiddie porn. They are involved in all of these awful things. And so it reaches from the top to the bottom through all aspects of our world, which is really difficult for people to get their head around because it can be involved with the government, okay? But then it can be involved with corporations, okay? But then it can be involved with nonprofits. And so we had someone asking before, Tim, who can I reach out to? Who can help me? Well, you have to even be careful with nonprofits and people trying to help people like us because they can be corrupted and they can be being run by these people. Or you can have media that's spinning it like, oh, we're trying to share the truth and we're going to give you all this information. Well, they're giving you bits of the truth, but they're giving you a bunch of bullshit mixed in with the truth at the same time in order to create this confusion, this mass confusion on what is true and what isn't true. And so it's a terrible thing. It's a part of our government, our media, our religions, our corporations. These people, this is a satanic network that spans. It's a vast network, Emma. It's too bad, but it is. And so people need to understand that. These people just live differently. I don't want to get too worked up about that. I know that I can. So
well, it's like we were talking about earlier, psychopathy and them wanting control over us. So why would psychopaths want the people, if they're self-serving, why would they allow us to elect who goes in office? Like they control, they want all that control. They don't leave anything up to us to control. We're nothing to them. Like you said, they're elite and we're these little, ants that will just step on.
Yeah, they see themselves as gods.
Yes, exactly.
As gods. Yeah.
Right.
And it's a false narrative. And for them, it's a joke on them in the end. That's part of the sorrow in all of this is that they are fools and they have been completely fooled even by what they've been promised. They might have whatever it is they have in this world, but when it's over, they're screwed.
Yeah.
They are screwed. And yeah, it's a bad deal all the way around. All the way around. Yeah. So the next question was by April Valentina. And so I appreciate this question. It is would be interesting what he knows about the dynamics of RF and if PW is more or less like his father's PC or worse. The people of Ukraine seem to think PW will save them from their current failing state of affairs. Okay, Emma, I apologize, but I have no idea what they're talking about. So
I'm
I
trying
thought
to figure that out too. Dynamics of the RF. I was trying to think of what RF, WPC,
and PW.
W will save them.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I actually don't know either.
Okay. I don't know the answer to that one. I'm sorry, April.
Of the RF, PW, PC. Yeah, RF seems like it's an organization or like some type of an entity of the RF, and then PW and PC are people, but I don't know what they stand for. If I think of it while we're talking, I'll bring us back to it later on, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Sorry, April.
Sorry, April.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah. And then we have, this is from 8 Billion State Solution. How advanced was AI from the 80s to the year 2000? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that at all. I grew up in a computer store. My father owned a computer business. And so I grew up in a computer store. I was able to watch the technology from way back from like Commodore 64 or the Atari gaming system all the way up through to today. And it is incredible how advanced it has become. And there's things there that I need to write out. We were talking earlier about things that I'll write down that I need to work out. And some of those things are not around AI, but they are around technology. And so I'm not able to talk about them right now. I'm sorry, 8 Billion State Solution, but I really don't have a good answer for you on that. So the next one is from Keller. Keller says, been heartbreaking to read his journals on his website and about the country music world and the hunting parties. He was at Garth Brooks' grandparents' house. Now, I am seeing some believe Garth Brooks is a serial killer. Maybe J.R. has more info now. I would like to clarify, Keller, that I was taken to a house that I was told was the home of Garth Brooks' grandmother. This is what I was told. I have been seeing people talk about Garth and being a serial killer and all that, but I'll talk about my experience there for a minute. So when I was taken back east in 1993 to meet with people like Senator Byrd and Charlie Pride, that was the summer that I was sold. We went on that big trip back east with my grandparents, and we did stop at a home and in a town, and I was told it was Garth Brooks's grandmother's home. Now, I don't know if this was exactly Garth Brooks' grandma, or if this was Garth Brooks' god grandmother, or if this was an old woman that he grew up around. I don't know the answer to all that. All I know is I was told that this woman was Garth Brooks's grandmother. And so we stopped there and we went inside and we had to be very polite. And there was another woman there and she was related somehow. and she seemed to be related to Garth Brooks as well. There did seem to be some kind of relation there in some way. And this woman was younger, who helped this older woman that I was told was Garth Brooks's grandmother, and she helped around the house and stuff like that for some extra money. Well, she hung out for a while with us. She made tea, and we had tea with this lady who we were told was Garth Brooks's grandma. And she had pictures there on the wall of Garth, pictures from his graduation, different things like that, and different members of the family. So it's all really weird, Emma. I haven't been able to completely understand that memory or who this woman is truly. I have that picture of the side of her house when we left, because my grandpa had told me to take a picture of it. And I was like, why in the hell would I take a picture of the side of this house? I only have so many pictures in my camera, because back then I just had this old film thing, the 35 millimeter. And so, but I took a picture of it because my grandpa told me to. And so I don't know exactly who that woman was, but we did talk, and we talked about, I can remember them in particular talking about Garth and how Garth was in the project. They were talking about the CIA's trauma-based mind control program, just openly right there in front of us. And they talked about how Garth was in the program, and Garth was, Garth is a trauma-based mind slave. So I don't know much more than that about Garth, other than he is a trauma-based mind slave, and I had tea with someone that I was told was his grandma, but I don't know much more than that. So I hope that's helpful to people in their research in the future, but that's all I can share on that at this point. So that covers everything from X. Okay, Emma. So when we were going to do this, we said, let's do all these questions. Well, then I saw that you said, well, there's also YouTube. And I was like, oh, no, I didn't even see those. And so I went to YouTube. And so now we're going to go through the questions from YouTube. So I understand I can't answer all these things, but that's fine, because maybe you need to look somewhere else and we're able to steer you in another direction like Justin. So this one is a question from YouTube, and it's at Sleva44. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong. I apologize. But it says, J.R. is probably my favorite guest you've ever had. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I know this sounds a little crazy, but I actually heard this from him on one of your podcasts. I would like to ask him, what are the chances that the pork we buy in stores is the same pork that is used to consume the remains of human sacrifices? Pig farms. Yeah. And so we're talking about pig farms. And so I don't eat pork, Sleva. I don't. That's something that I have completely sworn off, because no one can offer me pork that I don't personally know was not fed human remains. When I was in the project and I was active, oftentimes bodies would be fed to hogs. People would be dismembered. Those body parts would be fed to hogs. It's a horrible reality, but that's the reality we live in. And so I don't eat pork. When I can remember people who'd even just had like maybe 5-6 pigs being used for body disposal, up to big corporate style farming where someone has hundreds of pigs also being compromised, also their farms being used. And so I don't know the answer to that. I know I don't eat pork because I do not want anything to do with that. Any animal that will do that is awful. And I know that the CIA and the Mormons, the satanic Mormons, do that a lot. They're really into getting rid of bodies through pig farms. And the agency is as well. And the agency will use those Mormons to help them get rid of bodies through the pig farms.
Ugh.
So, yeah, so I wouldn't recommend eating pork. I don't eat it. It sucks because, I love pizza. And you go to get a pizza, what's it always covered in? My God, it's always covered in pork. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to eat it. I'm just not.
And bacon's so good too.
Bacon is so good. Yeah, you can buy turkey bacon, which is nice.
Yeah, truly. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get that or turkey sausage, but I don't do pork at all. So that's a really good question, though. I really appreciate that one. The next one is by Jill Marie 180. Dear JR, I'm so excited that you are coming back onto the podcast. I'm excited to be here too. Thank you for having me, Emma. Yeah. If I had one question to ask, this would be it. Before you broke through the amnesia, how would you describe the architecture of your lived experience, both internally and externally? And in hindsight, what signals, patterns, or discontinuities were present that pointed to something unintegrated, even if they weren't consciously recognized at the time? Love and thanks, Jill. That is an excellent question, Jill. I really appreciate that one. That one I could probably talk about for way too long. So I made a couple of notes so that I could stay focused on that question, because before I started to break through my amnesia, I had a part of me that was very divided. I had a part of me that was keep on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. You remember that one, Emma?
Yeah.
That movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, had a lot of that kind of music in it. And Byrd wanted me to watch Oh Brother, Where Art Thou. It was very important to Mr. Byrd that I watch that film. A lot of films, not just Disney, can be used for updates and various things. And so Byrd really wanted me to watch that one, I can remember. And it's important for people handling slaves to keep them on the sunny side, to try to keep them on the sunny side so that they're not ever looking into the evil of what actually occurred in their life and that negative side. And so for me, people worked at that, at keeping me on the sunny side, which I found interesting when I started to really work through stuff. I couldn't even remember, it's called Stockholm Syndrome. I couldn't remember all the bad stuff I'd lived through. They worked at keeping me on the sunny side by always allowing me essentially to do what it is I wanted to do. And so I had told my uncle before I started doing carpentry that I wanted to do carpentry. And then they got me a job doing carpentry. And then I excelled at carpentry. And I'm still doing carpentry to this day. And then when I wanted to go to college, that way was provided for me to go to college. And when I went to college, I was also given the opportunity to excel at college. And my professors would work one-on-one with me. And some of those professors, I'm not going to say all of them because I don't know the answer to that. Some of those professors understood who I was, and they would work specifically trying to move me along and to help me even find jobs where the agency wanted me to be. For example, I studied landscape architecture. I graduated with honors from the University of Idaho. My professor that I worked with wanted me to go work with the Army Corps of Engineers. He was trying to get me a job with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I'm very grateful I didn't. Another job he tried to get me was for a company in Wyoming, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Well, in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, that's where Dick Cheney had a house. That would have put me working directly for the satanic elite right there in an area where Dick Cheney would have been spending time and giving him access to me. And so they're always working at controlling you and moving you through these different sources of employ. They would also put friends in my path, very specific people to try to control me, clients as well. When I had my own company, I had clients that worked for the FBI, clients that worked for the Pentagon, clients that worked for the Latah County Sheriff's Office, clients that were ex-Marines. There was this pattern there that I started to recognize. Okay, I seem to always be working for people connected to all these weird things like the Pentagon, the FBI, the Latah County Sheriff's Office, the military. And so I started to pay attention to that. And then I started to pay attention to who is actually handling me, who's trying to handle me. And then I tried to position myself professionally where I knew that people weren't trying to handle me. And then another thing, you're always getting memory flashes. You're always getting these flashes of things you don't understand. And you're like, well, what was that? And you don't understand it, a memory flash. And it might be something simple or it might be something traumatic. I had memory flashes of pulling a broom backwards, or I had memory flashes of very violent things occurring, people dying or something, and you just couldn't understand it. And then you also had going back, okay, I'm not going back to keep on the sunny side of things. You if you're always over here, always at this end of the pendulum, but it's hard to show this on screen, but then you have down here, this is your low, this is your high. If you're always up here, at some point, something's going to happen that's going to cause you to go boom. And you're going to go boom, down to that low, boom. And so I would switch. I would go from way high here, being super nice guy, being super positive, to boom, now I'm an asshole. Now I'm a jerk. Now I'm yelling at people. Now I'm mean to my wife. Now I'm beating my dog. These different things, and I'm just being honest with you. That's how I was. And now that I understand all those things and that I've been able to integrate those different personalities and memories into my base personality, it has made it so that I'm able to recognize that and I'm able to control that. And sometimes you do lose track of it. That's why, like I was saying, prayer is so important. Because you're always trying to come back and say, well, what happened? What occurred? Why did I get triggered? And so there's a lot of things that you can look for, those little things. I have people around me now that I'm always watching because I have to pay attention to people, because I understand how much the agency and the satanic elite will work at putting people in your environment if you are someone like me. And so I'm always watching people for different signs. And I watch people just go boom, from that high one day, boom, the next day. Whoa, what's going on? What's wrong? And trying to work through those things. So watch for those signs. Watch for the up and downs. Watch for people talking about weird stuff. People will say weird things to me that I don't quite know about, like, oh, well, I know about this or I know about that. And I'm like, well, why? How do you know about people drinking blood? Or how do you know about trauma and memory? How do you know about these things? And so those little things will start to come out. And that's why it's important to listen, just to listen and let people even process it as they're going through it, because then they're able to process it on God's terms and within their own mind. And so that's really important. So, but I'll keep moving. I hope that answered that question okay for you, Jill. This one is by Prague Snob 14. And it says, I'd like to know his opinion on the best way to open eyes of well-intentioned Mormons. And so for me, I don't just have this CIA side, I also have this satanic Mormon side. And there's this whole other envelope you could get involved in that. And for me, I don't get too involved in that because I just don't. I haven't believed in Mormonism for at least 10, 12, if not more years. I don't know how long. And I just don't even think about that a whole lot. But I do have relatives who are Mormon, and they are well-intentioned Mormons. And so I will try to stay focused, Emma. I apologize. And I apologize, Proxnop 14. It's difficult. I understand that. I have people in, we'll just say people that are close to my wife and I that we try to talk to, and it's very difficult to understand how to get through to those people because Mormonism, there is a lot of conditioning and programming in Mormonism itself. And going back to spiritual, I'll go back to spiritual because it's important. There is a very powerful spell. I believe in the casting of spells. I've had experience with them myself. Trauma-based mind control in and of itself is a very powerful spell. And spells have power. And there is a spell over the minds of a lot of people that are in the Mormon church, and they can't see through that spell. And there's power in it. And it's a difficult spell to break. And it's also brainwashing. They go through a lot of brainwashing and programming and conditioning to never question the narrative that the church is giving them. Once you see through it, once you break that bind of that spell, you can see through it. It's as clear as day. It's like, oh my God, that is insanity. What is going on in that church? And the fact that everyone just believes what this white, old, crusty looking fucker as a prophet is telling everyone. Everyone just believes these people. I'm sorry, Emma, I don't mean to swear, but these people are so awful that lead that church. They are horrid little satanic bastards. And once you see through and you break that spell of confidence that they have over your mind, and you understand, like, these people are, why did I ever believe anything they said? Why? It is incredible. I don't know how to answer it. It takes, I would say, use facts and use truth, and God and their own mental cognition will lead them in the right path. Because with Mormonism, it's difficult. You're not going to say something to somebody and just all of a sudden they're going to see the light and be like, oh, I get it now. It takes a while. It's hard to break that all down. I have learned in my own journey that it's best to just say facts and the truth. Sometimes I'll share my opinion on something like X or whatever, and people are not nearly as interested in your opinion as just straight facts and truth, because it has so much power and so much weight in it. You can't kill it. You can't make it die. You can't make it ever go away. And that truth and those facts will forever nag at people until it breaks them free of what it is you're trying to communicate with them. And so for me, I've learned patience with Mormon people. And I don't say Mormon people derogatorily. I want people to understand that. I was raised in the LDS church. I know there's a lot of good people in the church, but the church has led a lot of people astray. And that church is controlled by a satanic network, a satanic cabal, a bunch of satanic pedophiles that are into killing little kids and drinking their blood. And they are horrible people. And so have patience, present facts, present truth, and let it sink in. And over time, God will show those people the way. So do you have anything you want to add to that, Emma? I don't mean to preach at everyone.
No, I think that was perfect. It's sort of like politics. Sometimes it can be like talking to a wall.
Yeah.
But planting seeds are really important. The person might not get it that moment that you share with them, but if you share facts that they can go look up, if you're compassionate, you're listening, and being somebody who's not combative in conversing, that person's going to always remember what you said, and they can go further research, and they might get it, the moment you tell them, or maybe it'll be a few years before they sort of, or it might not be ever, but it doesn't hurt to plant seeds and to do it rooted in a good place in your heart where you're caring and you want the best for that person. You're not combative. You're not judging them. You're informing in a factual way. I think that was a really good word of advice that you gave. And I agree with you.
Yeah. And that's good, with love and respect, because that's what it's really all about. If you want someone to know the truth, you love them and you care about them. And the best approach is non-combative.
Yes.
And so, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Yeah. So the next one is from the Nurse Who Loved Me, 89. And so the Nurse Who Loved Me said, this one's a bit random, but does he know if the FBI have any involvement in CIA programs? I have a friend who was taken to America about 3 decades ago and interrogated. They said they thought it was the FBI, but they also said they weren't supposed to remember it, which sounds like what happens with the CIA programming. It's okay if he doesn't know, though. I'm just excited to see him back. I love JR so much. Well, thank you. Thank you, the Nurse Who Loved Me. That's awesome.
Everybody loves JR.
Oh, we'll see. The Nurse Who Loved Me. The FBI is, how do I say this? I was handled by a man who was FBI trained, who was involved with the FBI. He was clearly handling me in outside Moscow, Idaho, before I started to remember stuff. When I called the FBI, I would like to add this individual who I'm talking about, he was involved with interrogating people, and he was involved with holding people for durations of time, up to months at a time. And he was a bad man, and he was working on handling me. This program, like we've been talking about, is not specific to the agency at all times. The agency has this technology, but so do other individuals and other entities. And so I don't know how to exactly answer that other than to say, I have had involvement with people who were FBI, who were rotten, and I've tried working with the FBI, and the FBI seemed to be rotten to me. They hung up the phone on me when I called them. They just hung up after I tried talking to them. But now I'm just rambling, so I don't want to ramble. But yeah, there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of agencies involved and a lot of governmental departments. And so the FBI is involved with these things. So the next one is from Tracy Ash, 123. Is JR RH negative blood type? What are his thoughts per Epstein allegedly procuring Mormon blood once a week in exchange for paying the Mormon procurers college tuition. I did hear a little bit about this. I think Justin Riggs, going back to Justin, he covered more on this than I have. I don't like to form opinions on things like this and share them. I prefer to share my experience more, but I will share my opinion on this, how I perceive it. I'm not saying that this is fact because this is my opinion, but I don't know what blood type I am. I'll just tell you that right now. I don't know offhand. I probably should, but I don't. With Epstein, that's a really good question because this could mean a lot of things. I do know that when I was in a presentation for Gordon B. Hinckley, it was really important that we were clean. My uncle explained to Hinckley that we were clean, that we didn't have nicotine in our bodies, we didn't have alcohol or drugs other than what they were feeding us in our bodies, and they considered us to be clean. And this was important to them for some reason. As far as blood, it's a tough one because there are people who like to drink blood, Emma, and who like to drink it drawn through trauma. And if you're into drinking blood and you want to know that there's nothing in that blood, any drugs or any disease that you might get or anything like that, you would want to get it from someone who you knew wasn't going to be doing any of those things. Now, with that said, Mormon girls have their own history from where I was growing up. Yeah, and so I don't know. This is a good one to think about. The people are going to have to think about that and gain a better understanding of it. I don't have experience with Epstein myself, and so that's a really tough one for me to even try to answer. But there's a lot of different avenues that you could approach it from. So,
and I had Justin Riggs came on a few weeks ago. I think I aired it. He did a whole episode on that Mormon blood letter and his thoughts on it, and what he's been able to uproot through his own research. So you guys can go listen to that and combine it with JR said and make your own hypothesis or opinion on that also.
Sweet. Yeah, that would be. Where's that at? You just find it on YouTube on your channel?
Yeah, I can send it to you if you want. It is really interesting what he found.
That probably is very interesting. I'll send
it to you. Okay.
Yeah, sweet. The next one is from Bengal. What can he tell us about the Collins elite and or Nathan Reynolds family and how he's doing? The second to last video he's uploaded is pretty sad and concerning. I can't tell you much. You, Emma, could probably tell us more than I could about Nathan Reynolds. I don't know much about the Collins family, and I don't know how Nathan's doing. My wife was able to see that video. I try not to watch a whole lot of videos because of the pain and because I don't want to be triggered and because I don't want to have other people's memories interrupt my own. And so I don't watch them a whole lot. But yeah, I wonder how Nathan's doing too. Pray for Nathan.
He seems like go to Nathan's channel. Since these questions have been submitted for JR, I think Nathan's put up 1 or 2 short videos that seem like the family's in good spirits and, sort of gave a little life update on some things that they've been up to. So go check that out if you're still wondering and you missed those. I can't say, I know everything that's going on in their life and they don't broadcast everything, but he did put a couple of videos out that can give you guys a little answer to that question potentially.
Sweet. He seems like a really nice guy.
He's amazing.
Very genuine individual.
Just like you.
Yeah. He's Nathan Reynolds. Yeah. Yeah. Very good, dude. The next question is, inside your bones, And they said, "Oh my God, yes, I emailed you. Perfect." I remember this one. "I would love him to look at the Idaho 4 case and Dylan M. and Vicky G., who interviewed her. I believe there is evidence of what he experienced in this case, and everyone accepted the narrative. Not everyone, but mainstream media painted the event as a one perp crime, which is impossible. This quad homicide took place in November 2022 in Moscow, Idaho, and I truly believe JR may have some incredible insight. I haven't listened to the interview of Dylan by Vicky Goosh. I probably should. That'd be very interesting. There's a deep network, though, in Moscow. I do know that. When that murder occurred, that was very shocking, but my mind instantly was just like, oh my, like what really happened? What really went on? Because the network is so thick there in Moscow, with the CIA and satanic pedophilia and stuff like that. There's a thick network there. And it even permeates into Latah County Sheriff's Office. I had involvement with people in the Latah County Sheriff's Office that were corrupt and were trying to handle me as well. And I've talked about that a lot in various podcasts, and you can find that in some of Emma and I's recordings. And so the network is very thick there. I don't know anything about, what's his name? Brian something or other. Brian Koberger, that's his name. Yeah, I did live like one building away from where all that went down, which I found really strange. I had lived in that neighborhood. It was just right over, one building over from me where that occurred. We weren't there when it all happened. We had moved away by then, but yeah, that was a very bad deal. That area is very corrupt, and there's a strong satanic CIA network there. So that even permeates into Latah County. So people should look into all that. And if reputable law enforcement ever wants to talk to me about that, I'd be more than happy to talk to them about that, because it's going on there. It's a bad deal. So I'm sorry I can't help more on that. I will look into this interview, though, Inside Your Bones, and I will check that out and see what that's all about. So the next one is Freedom for Life Always. And this one is, there is a lot getting exposed at the top. I agree, there is. Does JR know of any of them? Has he come across them in his past that he hasn't already mentioned? I've mentioned a lot of the people already that I have had contact with, and people can read that on my website for free, or they can buy my book and they can read it there. Some of the bigger families I was involved with were like the Hiltons, the Ford family, Cheney, some country music family we were involved with. Yeah, there's a lot of them up there, but the Hiltons was one of the biggest ones. And I met all kinds of people. It's involved. This stuff's all in country music. It's in politics. It's everywhere. It's a horrible thing. And it sounds strange to even say that, but it is. It's permeated a lot of our culture. The next question is by Lake Bell 564. And I have a question about deprogramming. When combating the programming, do you also feel sick and experience depression symptoms as well? My plans are being sabotaged by health problems ever since recovering my traumatic memories from MK Ultra related programming. I pray that Yahweh will return my strength and peace. Stay safe, J.R. Sweet. Thank you, Lake Bell 564. Yes, there are physical, the body is an incredible thing. And so I had things locked in my body through trauma that were stuck there that did affect my health. I would say the biggest thing there was eczema. I used to get really bad eczema. And when I started to remember this stuff, I don't get eczema anymore at all. My eczema's gone. And I haven't worried about it at all since I started remembering these things. It just went away. And so I think that there was a connection there that for some reason and my father also experienced, when I knew him, experienced eczema really bad. And I would only be theorizing if I said why eczema was such a big deal. But it tortured me for a long time, and it just went away. And then other physical ailments, I had things I would remember, and when I would remember them, my body would remember it at the same time because the mind and the body are connected. I can remember this one time this guy punched me in the face and he knocked me right out. He was a big dude and he punched me so hard and he knocked me right out. And when I remembered that, my whole face popped, Emma. It just went, and I was like, oh my God, what just happened? And my face had remembered it too. My body remembered it and it popped. And that was really weird. And then seizures, I experience seizures when I will do interviews like this, or when I'm really deep into journaling. If those things are really traumatic, and if the podcast I'm doing or something I'm remembering and going through all these really bad things, I go through seizures, and those seizures, I believe, are reaction to being electrocuted and hit with a stun gun so many times. So I'll lay down. Usually it'll happen when I lay down and I try going to sleep. I'll get to a certain point in falling asleep. We go through stages of falling asleep, and then I'll just get hit, wham, and it's just boom. I'll have this seizure, which comes from my leg where I have my scar. Sometimes it'll come from the other leg, because people did mess up and they would hit me on that side sometimes. And then when it's really bad, when I'm really working through some very heavy memories, I'll experience seizures it could be just in my day. You'll just get hit by it because the trauma is so thick and so horrid, and you're trying to process it. And some of these things that we've lived through, I'm not just talking me, I've lived through lots of bad things. And I know a lot of people listening, you've lived through a lot of bad things. And it's just too awful. It's so awful. And it'll just hit you too with just how horrid it is. But you get hit with that. And this individual, this Lake Bell, asked about depression. And yeah, depression, you want to talk about depression. You try being someone who was raped by their family and relatives and politicians and religious leaders and made to watch people die. And you want to talk about depression. Oh my God, it can be so thick. It's so deep and just take you. And I've learned that it's okay to get depressed. It's okay. You can get depressed, but understand that you're depressed. Be consciously aware of it. I will even listen to sad music, and I'll allow myself to be sad, Emma. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay to be sad. Let yourself be sad. Why are you sad? And then you start to ask yourself questions. Why are you sad? And and you gain an understanding of why you're sad, and you start to release all that pain. It's okay to release the pain and let it out. I do try to be positive. I go throughout my day and I try to stay positive, and I try to bring an energy of light where I go and with the people I meet, because I've seen the dark and I've seen what happens when people share that darkness in society. And I want to share light with people. And so I try to be that light in my day, but you do get depressed sometimes. And sometimes it can take you to such a low, but it's okay. If you go to that low, understand you're going to come back. You're going to come back. You'll reach that low and then you'll come back up. And so, yeah, you do go through all those things. And it is tough with health problems. I don't face as many health problems as my wife does. My wife has an autoimmune disease where she can hardly eat anything, it seems like sometimes, and she'll feel horrible. And that's really hard to deal with. And so I understand when people have health problems. I don't have that many health problems. And so, but I understand that because my wife has health problems, and my son does as well. And so I understand how that can be debilitating and help take you away from your healing process. But it's also important to not discredit and set aside the spiritual aspect of these things, because going back to spells, the satanic elite and Satanists and these individuals who work in dark powers, they are able to work in spells and affect our health. As odd as that all may sound, but it's the truth. And so it's important to also work on not just physical, but a mental and spiritual health, because you might need healing somewhere where you didn't even realize you needed healing. And so that's why it's so important to work through journaling. That's why Kathy's work is so important, PTSD Time to Heal, because it gives you that path. And through journaling, you can begin to understand all those different aspects. And so I hope I've answered that question. Another thing too, a symptom, this individual asked about symptoms. Another thing are phobias. Before I started to remember all this stuff, Emma, I had phobias that were irrational phobias. Lightning. When a lightning storm would come, I would get paranoid. I would become frantic. I would try to hide. I would always run to my car when we lived on our property in Idaho, because a lot of folks don't know. I should share it with people, but we lived in what are called yomes in Idaho for a long time as we were building our house. And a yome is a lot like a yurt. And so we lived in these yomes, and when the lightning storms and those big storms would come, I would just become terrified because I was in this little tiny shelter thing, and I would run to my car, and my wife would be outside just watching the storm, and I'd be like, no, you have to get in the car. You're going to die. This is crazy. But it was a phobia that I had. And now I don't care. The lightning can be right outside my door, and I don't care. I'm like, well, if God wants me, he can take me with lightning if he wants. I mean, if it's my time, I don't worry about it. And same with spiders. I used to be terrified of spiders, just terrified, irrationally so. And now I don't care about spiders. They live in my house. You know, my daughter will be like, Dad, you got to get rid of that. And I'm like, why? Let them chill. Just let them hang out. They'll get the bugs when the bugs come, you know. And so you do go through irrational things like that, irrational phobias. The next one is latte to talk about. we only have a couple questions left, Emma. So I just want to go through the last couple. This has been really interesting. It's fascinating to talk about everyone's questions because you get to see everyone's different perspective. And because I lived through it from one perspective, well, my perspective, and for me, it was just a part of life. And so this is interesting to go through questions. And so Latte to talk about says, share with us how it's all connected to present time and this planned demolition we're facing. And so we've already talked about that a little bit in a previous question, and people can read about that in Meeting with a Bird in the Garden. That's where you can find most of my opinion on that latte to talk about. And that's a good, they want to destroy America as it is, and they don't like the emblem of freedom that it presents. And there is a planned demolition. And you can find that in my journaled memory, Meeting with a Bird in the Garden. Then Brooke Cobb 63, ask him if he believes Brigham Young to be the sower of the occult wickedness within the LDS Church. So thank you, Brooke Cobb 63. I appreciate your question. This is a conversation, Emma, that happens a lot in the church, of people trying to understand exactly the church's history and its founding. And so she asked if Brigham Young was the sower of the occult wickedness. And then she goes on and says, or if he believes Joseph Smith wasn't a polygamist, and if he believes the Book of Mormon to be true as printed by Joseph Smith and corrupted by Brigham Young. I think the Book of Mormon is a big bunch of bullshit, is what I think. If you really want to know what I think about the Book of Mormon, I am not here to shatter your perception of the church. That is my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. I think the church is based on a lot of Freemasonry. You can research the church, and there are a lot of similarities between the Freemasonry practices and the church practices, the rituals, I believe is what you'd call them. And so you can look all that up. There's also really good books on things like this book here. This is an excellent work that people can pick up and read, Mormonism, Magic, and Masonry. And it's by Gerald and Sandra Tanner. And this were some Christian folks that started studying this stuff. And you can find their works online and buy that book. Another one is Satanic Ritual Abuse and Mormonism by the same authors, Gerald and Sandra Tanner. And those books are very enlightening. And they will talk about Joseph Smith and his history with the occult. He had a very long history with the occult, as well as his father and his mother. And you can read about all that. It's all documented. And there's historical documents about it and about the magic. There's this magic talisman he took around everywhere. He was big into occultism. And so as far as polygamy, I don't know. I wasn't there with Joe when he was around. I think he was a pedophilic, psychopathic weirdo involved with Freemasonry and spun this giant tale called the Book of Mormon. If you start looking into the Book of Mormon too, and Freemasonry, because Freemasonry has its own tales, its own history of the world, you might say. And these histories from Freemasonry are very similar to what you're getting in the Book of Mormon. And so you can look up those connections between Freemasonry and Mormonism. And Joseph Smith was elevated to a Freemason, like a 33rd degree Freemason after like a week of being involved with a lodge. And so the whole thing, it's all just, yeah, I don't like it. No, it's all a bunch of bullshit, man. Like, don't be following Mormonism. My God, it's a Luciferian spin on Christianity. And it's going to lead people into what is the New World Order. It has created all these mindless people who follow this religion and follow these leaders. Look what happened when COVID hit. What did the church do? Said, oh, follow your leaders. You know, we got to all go get this vaccine. We got to do what the government's telling us because we'll obey the law of the land. The church is, my God, it's a bunch of bullshit. So I don't mean to be a jerk. I'm sorry if I'm a jerk. I'm probably a big jerk, but that's how I feel about it. And so,
No, you're not. You could never be.
Yeah, I'm a big asshole, but that thing is
maybe to the right people, but not here. You're not being one.
it's just yeah. So for me, yeah, I don't believe it at all. And before I started to remember this stuff, Emma, I was telling my wife, like, well, maybe we should go back to church. Like, I was thinking about going back to church because I had friends that were LDS and I'd grown up LDS, and I was like, maybe I should just start going again. I mean, it seems like a good deal. And then I started to remember stuff, and
not a good deal.
Not a good deal. And I try not to look into it too much because I really don't. I don't care about Mormonism. I'm not emotionally attached to it anymore. I'm not. I've broken that spell from Mormonism itself, which is a very powerful bind. And I've broken that. And I'm like, no, I don't need it. I don't need it. My experience with death had nothing to do with Mormonism. Other than I'd been made to be in a presentation for Gordon B. Hinckley, I suppose. But other than that, no. So I hope I've answered that okay. I don't mean to get too worked up, but I don't believe any of it. I think Joe Smith was an occultist, and he was involved with dark magic. He was into treasure hunting. He would like sacrifice an animal and pour its blood all around where he thought the treasure was supposed to be. He was really big into treasure hunting. He had this Jupiter medallion, that's what it was called, and he carried that everywhere, and he was even killed with this thing on. And he was involved with Freemasonry and Mormonism. Look into it, folks. Like, it's interlocked. It's too bad. I wish it was great. I wish it was all ponies and rainbows, but it's just not. It's a big con on humanity. So that's how I feel about that. That's my belief on that. So, yeah. And then this is the last question. And so thank you, Emma, for all of your time doing these things. I really appreciate it. This is from Samantha 6670. And I found it great to follow up with our heroes. Let me think of some questions. Will you interview Ron again? Where is he now? So we ended on a really easy question for me. Because I don't know where Ron is. I'm not sure. Yeah, but it was a great question. I don't know. But Emma will tell us about it. So
I haven't spoken to Ron recently, but that comment, whenever I saw it pop up, reminded me to reach out to him. So I actually have that on my to-do list to check in with him. And if he's down to do another interview, I will bring him on. But I currently don't know at this moment how he's doing. But I appreciate you guys worrying about him and, keeping track of all these survivors. And if somebody hasn't been on the show or if you haven't heard from him, I really appreciate that you guys take note of that and want to make sure that they're okay either way. So I'll update you guys as soon as I know. And JR, thank you for answering all those questions. That was a lot of questions that people submitted. Oh my goodness. And really good questions too.
So that was really nice to go through all those questions for everyone.
It was. And we had some pretty good ones too. I know not all of them you could answer super thoroughly, but it's like you said, it's really interesting just to see what people are curious about and the things that they want to know and learn about. And I just appreciate everybody being very curious and really giving, most of you guys gave very specific questions that had to do specifically with JR's testimony or things that you thought maybe he would know about based on some of his experiences. So thank you guys too for, studying JR's website and reading his book and listening to his interviews and paying attention to those details and asking him really great questions that he hasn't spoken about too much or at all. And JR, you did an awesome job answering some of those. Some of those were a little bit, complicated or, sort of outside the box. And I really appreciate you trying to answer all of them as best as you can. And some of them you really dove into and were able to give some great insights on. So thank you.
Yeah, it was fun. It's always nice to be able to read people's questions like that and see different perspectives. But yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer all of them. I don't know. I only know what I know, and that's all that I know, And so that's the beautiful thing, though, about there being a lot of different survivors and a lot of different voices, is that everyone brings their own different perspective and their own experience to the table. And so I really appreciate that. And I appreciate your work, Emma, the work that you do in bringing all these things to light as well. Thank you. Did you just have trouble with your internet? I'm curious because I lost you there for like 2-3 minutes. I don't know.
Oh, really? No, I didn't, but I could tell on my end you were lagging a little bit. Last time, right at the end of our interview too, remember we had interference at the end. That's so funny.
Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. But thank you. I do appreciate it.
I'm grateful that you came on again today. And, like I said, I really appreciate everybody's questions. You guys had some awesome questions, and I'm grateful JR was able to, for the most part, answer most of them. And JR, one of the things that I wanted to just touch base on is one of the things that you mentioned, which is a great resource to dig deeper into some of the answers that you gave, is your blog and or your book. Do you want to share where people can find that? And you're obviously welcome to share anything else that you want about your website, blog, and book. And I'll bring up your website also as you're talking.
Okay. Yeah. People can find my website. So my website, I believe that all this information should be free and accessible to people. And so they can go to my website, mormonmonarch.com. And they can find all of my book is there on my website for free. All of my journaled memories are there, and you can just click on a link and it's going to take you right to that journaled memory, and then you can read about that. And it's I tried to be very detailed in my journaling because there's an old saying, the devil's in the details. And that is very, very, very true. The devil is hiding in the details. And so a lot of the questions that we went through today, I would recommend to people study these works and study the details because there's answers in those details to a lot of questions. And you can also find information on how to get my book. Yep, right there, purchase book. You can buy my book there, and my book.
If it'll load.
Yeah, my book is nice because I like it because I like a book. And so if you don't want to read all my journaled memories and stuff on my website, you can go and just buy the book. And I put that all together in a book form. And I like books. And so for me, I wanted to make a book and put it all together. And so, yep, there it is. Folks can buy that. And that's nice because you can share it with others. It's not just telling somebody a website or something like that. You can actually just hand it to them and say, hey, you should read this. Or you can send it to your political representative, to your congressperson. Mm-hmm. Or you can send it to the White House. I think everyone should be sending them straight to the White House and flood the White House with them. They should get thousands of copies piled up on their desk and say, read this. The people know we are done with what is going on. And same with your congressman. Send one to your congressman. Let them know we know what you're doing now. We understand what trauma-based mind control is. We want these things investigated honestly, and we want an end put to it right now. Because what we've been talking about, it's been fun doing question and answer, but we're talking about a dangerous top secret weapon, a weapon that is so dangerous that you can have a select group of elite satanic weirdo pedophiles controlling the people who control our government. They're just puppets to them. It's disgusting. It's terrible. It's dangerous. It is a matter of national security. And we have got to put our hammer down as a people and say, no, we're done with this. We know what you're doing. And so people can buy my book, and I would recommend sending it to your representative, send it to Trump, flood their offices with these things, and just say, we know what you're doing. So the book is useful for that. But if you just want to read it, you can read the website for free. I'll give you all the information for free. And I know that there are countries where even when my book is on sale, that's a lot of money. $23 is a lot of money. I get it. That's another reason it's nice to be able to access it right here online for free. And I added the book forward and the introduction to my website so that people can access those for free. I don't want people to be feeling like they can't have access to these things. So folks can go there and find all those things, Emma, and share it with people. Sharing it is the key. The key, if you have something that's disgusting and dangerous and illegal and involves child abuse and involves child trafficking and human trafficking, child pornography, murder, assassinations, how do you make it so it's not top secret anymore? You start talking about it. You talk about it. That's what you do. And it's becoming more and more commonplace that people talk about these things. You know, it's interesting, even on the radio, just listening to FM radio, you'll hear them use the term brainwash. Brainwash. You think about it, how many years ago was it that you wouldn't have even ever heard that word? But now it's a lot more commonplace to hear it on the radio. And that's interesting. The more we talk about it, the more commonplace it becomes, the more we can combat it because people can see it. So, yeah.
And speaking of talking about it, JR obviously has his memories and his book available on his website through the link to get his book and his blog. However, if you guys want to keep up with him daily, he does have an X account where he posts as much as he can. Please be patient. We always say be patient if you reach out and ask questions or, write a message. Some of the stuff can get overwhelming, especially whenever you have a family, a full-time job, and obviously ups and downs emotionally where maybe you need a detox from online a little bit and don't want to spend all your spare time on there. So yeah. I would really appreciate it if you guys went and supported him on X at freeslave777. He posts mostly daily, and he posts the interviews that he's doing, anything new in his life that he's putting out, updates, and then he shares other really good key posts about trauma-based mind control and engages a lot on here. So I would love if you guys went and supported him on X. And it's great. You're almost at 10,000 followers, which is awesome. It's really cool to see survivors getting platformed more and finding more of an audience when that's exactly like you said. That's what these satanic parasites, the quote unquote elite, this parasite class, they don't want you guys seen and heard. And it's amazing how social media may have been a way that they tried to use or create something against humanity for their own benefit. And it's awesome how we're sort of turning it around and creating exposure on these different platforms. And you're really doing that. Some of your posts I'm seeing get shared around a lot. And it's really encouraging to see people not just believing this, but having the courage to share it and, repost it on their page and get the good word out about bad things. So I really appreciate everything that you do on X also, JR.
Yeah, it is using their tools to our advantage.
There you go. That's better, much
Yeah,
better, simpler way to
yeah,
put it. Yes. And so I'm
yeah,
going to have JR's links below, you guys. And like I said, you know, and like he said, you guys can read his memories for free. You can follow him for free. If you'd like a physical copy of his book, you can get it right on his website. It also makes a great gift for friends, other survivors, and like how he said, your Congress people, presidents, people in power, you know, get these books sent out. You could do it right from the website. So I would definitely take his advice on that and help circulate his work anywhere that you guys can. JR, was there anything else that you wanted to close with, or anything, anything that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
I think I'm good. Yeah, Kurt Metzger's awesome.
We
I,
cut.
yeah. Yeah, I
I
got to
saw
give a shout out to Kurt.
somebody on one of the comments that they wrote, they were like, Joe Rogan, get JR on your show. I saw that somebody put that, and you know, Joe Rogan has JR's book now because of Kurt Metzger, and
Yeah,
your book was just mentioned also on the Julian Dory podcast, which is huge. That podcast also has over 1 million subscribers and gets a lot of views. So really awesome to see people like Kurt helping promote this in spaces that, you know, don't typically talk about this topic. So all, you know, praises to you, JR, for the work that you're doing. And, you know, people believe in it because they believe in you. So I'm really grateful for everything that you're doing, and really happy to see it circulating and, you know, being talked about on bigger platforms with bigger audiences too.
yeah, yeah. So I appreciate Kurt, and I appreciate you, Emma. Thank you. And
Shout out to
everyone out there. Yeah, we couldn't do it without everyone, all of us. So thank you.
Like I said, you guys go in the show notes, connect with JR, and thank you guys so much. You guys are truly the backbone of this movement. Without you guys, we would just be literally speaking into an abyss, and you know, that wouldn't be very fun for any of us. So it takes all of us, like JR said, to help circulate this information and wake the world up. And one day, one testimony and one book at a time, we're doing that with your guys' help. So with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for listening. God bless you all, and we will see you next time.